Welcome people to the World Wide Web and welcome back to the latest video. So we have a review of the movie M3gan. So I went to see this a few days ago, or yesterday even. And yeah, I must admit it was all right. I'll try and keep spoilers out of it, but yeah. So the basic premise is obviously, I'll try and keep it as minimal, but basically a young girl, her parents die. She's left with her aunt. Her aunt's in cybernetics, and she's creating M3gan, and M3gan becomes her friend. Then obviously things start to go a bit AWOL as the movie goes on. So yeah, that's a little bit of the premise. I'll try and not go into too much as later goes on. So there are a lot of factors and a lot of stuff involved in this movie. Some work, some didn't. In my views. There was quite a few people in there who were going to watch it, so I have heard it has done quite well, so it's good. But yeah, so I don't know. So let's start with, I'll start with a rating. So I'm going to give it 5.5 out of 10. Let's straight off the bat. There's no point sugarcoat. It was all right, and that's exactly what it did. So yeah, there were a few good things I did. So the whole story of how M3gan becomes kind of this friendly AI to evil AI, so to speak, or doll, done really well in my eyes. The story worked, it made sense, there was logic there. So I did that. The acting I thought was quite good in most cases, and and there were like some little in jokes and that stuff. Like if you're a toy collector like me, like the aunt, she has vintage toys and stuff, and there's a few jokes about that, which I thought worked really well and stuff like this. Yeah, I mean, obviously the CG or whatever was done to alter the actresses who played me. I believe it's two actresses who played M3gan who, that was done quite well. You couldn't really notice it. And yeah, and obviously, as I said, I liked the fact of her natural progression. Now there was obviously interactions that M3gan has with certain people that starts to turn her the way it is. But I don't want to go into. Okay, spoiler alert from this point onwards. We'll go into all the details now. So it's the next door neighbour and this dog that she has. Now I'm a big dog lover, so I'm quite glad you didn't really get to see a lot. But obviously then that doesn't work in the opposite favour. So M3gan, the dog next door, unfortunately attacks M3gan and then attacks a young girl, and that kind of starts M3gan on this downward spiral to basically she's only trying to protect M3gan, but her program has kind of been a bit skew whiff of they've made her an AI, they've made her ability to learn, and as we know from stuff like Terminator, when you give robots the ability to learn, it never ends up good, logically, because we humans were probably a bad example on that anyway, and that's what they're getting the information from, but it is what it is. But yeah, some stuff for me very, very blaring. So the aunt, she's very distant from the girl, and there isn't that much learning, or there isn't that too much interaction with it. She's more than happy to palm it off, and obviously they don't really cover the fact of how close her and her sister was. Like the therapist mentions it once, but that's about it. So for me, I would, so it would have been nice to maybe have it a little bit, but yeah, I think it's major down point for me. Is just how the film was tailored in the end. So this was supposed to be quite a horror film, quite a gory film, and then when they got near to the final cut, they realised obviously they could edit a few bits out and change a few bits and make it into a lot of a live film. I think it was a 15. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, obviously I think in America it's PG-13, so young kids can go see it. And to be honest, I don't think this is the sort of film young kids would want to go see. Obviously you do see some blood and some violence. There isn't many deaths in the grand scheme of things, so you don't get to see a lot, and this isn't too bad. I say big dog lover, so I'm happy you didn't really get to see much of the dog. The owner, you didn't really get to see. There's only kind of two guys that get killed mainly at the end, and then a young lad who gets pushed in front of a car, and this is where it is, like, you can see the natural progression of how they've done it, but like this little kid is a little shit. Pardon my French. He's not a very nice kid, There's no kind of sympathy with his mother, like, as he tells her to basically F off is the first, I think, thing he kind of says to her, and then just kind of picks on people and tries to hurt the young girl in this film. So that whole kind of arc slash section bit, he gets his ear pulled off and he gets pushed in front of a car, basically. And to be honest, I was like, good riddance. You know, there was no redeeming factor. You didn't see anyone sympathising over it. You know, you never got to see the mum really upset at it. And there was bits like that I thought was a bit strange. Because you know, you're going into these films and it's a horror and you're supposed to be scared. And this is where I think it suffers all over. And a few horrors and stuff I've been to see, I think, have not really kept up to the normal formula that some do, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing of keeping that formula, but I don't think it works from my perspective. So this one, like, you know, there are other horror films and stuff, you know, this happy couple, they move into a house, it's haunted, blah 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 blah, you know, there's these people there starting a new life and this happens. Whereas in this, this young girl, she's with her family, there's already an inclination she's very screen and you know, AI friendly, you know, she likes computers, she does well, and then the family get killed. So straight off the bat, you're already like, oh, you know, poor girl, she hasn't done this. And yeah, she finds like this robot to kind of help her, but the fact her aunt doesn't really want too much to do with her and is a bit of a palm off, you're already, or my perspective of the girl, is like, oh, hang on, you want the girl to have a happy ending. So the fact that you're giving her a robot that you know is then going to turn evil, because everybody knows the premise of the film anyway. And then that was the bit where I say, like, as I've rated it what it is, you know, it is definitely worth a watch, because I've got it. But yeah, there's stuff like that, and there's a lot of holes. So when you meet the aunt, and the aunt's got her own workshop, and she's taking this doll home for whatever reason, she's like, oh yeah, do you want to meet this robot I made when I was in like college or something? And he's called Bruce, and he's this big robot, and there's his gloves, and you're literally like, well, that's obviously what they're going to use to fight the doll later on. So conveniently, the young niece was the one that used his gloves, but by the by, very kind of predictable of it seeing it coming. And yeah, there's lots of, like, the two technicians that work with, you didn't really get to see much of them. The fact that M3gan was supposed to have all these tests and his training, you didn't get to see too much of that. It was more her interaction with the girl, which obviously developed the story along, but it would have been good to have seen, you know, a technical more side of it. The same way that M3gan goes crazy at the end and hangs one of the technicians and blows up the lab, but they both survive. And this is it, like, when I looked on IMDb, it said like there was 7 kills including the dog, and I can remember 4, and there's 2 of them, apart from one bloke getting a guillotine through the chest, and then somebody you seeing getting stabbed, presumably through the head off screen, and the next door neighbour and that, and the little kid, I can't really remember anybody else from that, so, but it was 2 more deaths. You know, maybe I must have blacked out during the film, or maybe I'm just not remembering it, because they were obviously not that memorable. But yeah, but maybe look, actually there was possibly 2 security guards that were involved. I don't know, but anyway, I digress. Inside. So yeah, so there's stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the fight, obviously she gets a bit mucked up and then starts looking like Chucky, and you have like, you cannot, but when you've got a doll that looks very human-like and starts getting mucked up, you're gonna have comparisons with Chucky. There's nothing really you can do about it. It's the same way there's an earlier scene where they have this pen, and they try and kind of calibrate with that, and I was like, oh, that reminds me of Robocop, and surprise enough, that's where the homage was from. So there was a few little bits like that. There was even a bit where they're setting the robot up in the first place, and they get it to be like sympathy, and she gives like a really like evil, like, smile, I can't even do it, but yeah, kind of an evil smirk thing, like smiley. And then they're like, oh yeah, we forgot this chip, and the head blows up, and there's stuff like that, and it's, maybe that's a bit of foreshadowing, or, you know, but by the by, but yeah, it's just, overall, I say it's a bit predictable. You know, when you kind of mix kind of a horror film, but you've tailored it more to younger kids, but then you have kind of the family aspect of it. I think is again why why I've seen other films like that. It just doesn't click with me, and that's just what it is. Obviously, the film is she's killed, but there is the AI kind of moving around, and this is the thing of, you create this robot, but she can learn, but then she seems to magically manifest Wi-Fi abilities that she can control stuff via Wi-Fi, and but then only in later films she can do it when she's hooked up. So that was a bit of a like, oh, is she or isn't she? But then you also, there's a point that you might, if you've seen it or you haven't, or somebody steals the plans for her, and it's like, well, someone's obviously can easily take that and build their own one. And then we have M3gan 2, and it has done very popular and made loads of money, so I'm pretty sure we probably will get a M3gan 2 at some point. And I probably will go watch it. As I say, this isn't a bad film in the grand scheme of things. It's just, for me, it was a little bit predictable, not really, and you know, it's like, I would have preferred this to have been 18. We had a few more deaths, a few more bloody things, you know, because they had scary moments of where it builds up the tension, but then because you don't see anything off screen and something, it kind of dulls that kind of shock factor. It's I think of there's a film with Ethan Hawke, and I can't remember it now, and obviously he's watching these videos, Sinister, I think it is, and obviously I think there's probably remembers this person mowing a garden, and then there's a shot there where somebody gets mowed under, and even though you don't necessarily see the kill, you know it's literally going to happen, and you know, and that was good shock factors. Whereas this, it kind of builds up to it and then it goes a little flat. It might, you know, but don't get me wrong, there was, which pulls the little ear off the kin, and he gets pushed in front of the car, and you know, I did enjoy that. But say, yeah, I didn't really sympathise with the kid, whether I was supposed to or not. That just depends on your views. But yeah, so well, I was going to say, that's M3gan in a nutshell. Obviously, if you watch this, you don't really need to see the film because I've detailed it, the majority of it. Yeah, right, 5.5, definitely worth a watch in my eyes. Will I buy it on DVD? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's up in the air in a minute. Maybe if they do a second one, I'll hold out for the box set. But yeah, it's 5.5 out of 10 for me. Yeah, I've been Cypher Sigma. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you in the next one. Signing out.